much for joining. I think we'll make a start. So let me just begin really with a dedication. The shir tonight is the outside of my late grandfather, the late Simon Kritz, Shimon Gedalia ben Nachman Halevi, a man I learned a tremendous amount from. He was a self-taught man who loved learning, loved his family, and really showed the pathway for everyone, his children, grandchildren, and now passing on to his great grandchildren. So it's a zechus to dedicate this shir Leilui Nishmosei. I'm also very mindful of the fact that exactly a year ago tonight, on Wednesday, it was Wednesday night of Parshas Vayakel Pekudei, when I davened Mariv in Shul. That night I was in Barnet Shul actually, and I remember speaking after Mariv, and there was no Rov there at the time, and I remember speaking after Shul and saying how this was the last evening where we'd be able to daven with a minyan, basically for the foreseeable future. I think the Hendon Shuls closed the following night on Thursday of Vayakel Pekudei. So it's meaningful in the sense that we're gathering together tonight to learn Torah and to prepare for Pesach. Some may say little has changed. We're still in the virtual world, but of course we are very much looking forward to Emet Hashem working towards a much more in-person experience in the very near future. Now, the limitations of Zoom manifest themselves in all sorts of ways. One of them is that one feels like one's speaking to oneself. So I think what I'd like to try and do, I think, is it would be nice if this is as interactive as possible. I've been given a number of issues, questions that people would like me to address, and obviously what I would like to do also is, of course, cover the areas that are particularly relevant to this year, Erev Pesach being on Shabbos. I think that the best way of doing it is probably for me to begin by going through going through really that in detail. How we deal with Erev Pesach on Shabbos, and then if there's anything in the course of what I'm saying that appears unclear or whatever, then please don't be afraid to unmute and say, could you missed that out, or can you clarify that, or whatever. This is this is helpful, as much helpful for me as it is for everyone else. So please do pause me if necessary. But in terms of other questions that are not directly related to what I'm sort of explaining at the time, let's leave those towards the end. Where, as I said, I will be dealing with a sort of range of issues that have been raised, and then we'll see whatever else hasn't been raised after that. Now, obviously, we can't cover everything this evening. As I mentioned in previous occasions, please do get in touch, privately or whatever, in any forum you like, in order to try and, if there's anything you'd like further clarity on. So, Erev Pesach on Shabbos leads to a number of interesting halachic conundrums, and it leads to some interesting solutions as well. Let's try and explain it as clearly as possible. Firstly, this hasn't happened, as you might be aware, for 13 years. 2008 was the previous time it's happened. And we haven't had that confluence of clocks changing in the middle of Yom Tov on Erev Pesach on Shabbos since 1994. Some of you may have seen that wonderful Times article that went around that said that it's been, well, it's okay because the next time will happen will be 2021. So there we are. Here we are now. So we'll begin at the very beginning. We'll try and go in order. Normally, of course, Tanis B'choros would be on Erev Pesach itself. On this occasion, Tanis B'choros is moved a day earlier, so it takes place on the Thursday. Otherwise, it is exactly the same as any other year. Those who are obligated to fast on this day, the minhag is to break the fast with a siyum, which we'll be doing after Shacharis, exactly the same as in any other year. The night of the Thursday evening, we do B'dikas Chometz. Now, this, of course, is the night of the 13th of Nisan. Generally speaking, when you would do B'dikas Chometz earlier, a person's going away, whatever, they would do it earlier, which you can do within 30 days of Pesach. You're going away and you do B'dikas Chometz earlier, you wouldn't make a brach on B'dikas Chometz. But in this situation, we do, partly because we're going to actually be burning the Chometz the next morning. So what that means is that the procedure for B'dikas Chometz is exactly the same as in any other year. In the sense that you do B'dikas Chometz as you would normally, make the bracha beforehand, and you say the normal nighttime bittul that you would say is in every other year in the evening after doing B'dikas Chometz. The next morning, you come to we come to burn chometz. Now, that's quite interesting because, of course, it's the 13th of Nisan, it's not the 14th, but clearly as we can't do that on Shabbos, so therefore we fulfill the mitzvah of destroying the chometz on the Friday morning. There, preferably, the way one should conduct oneself is to make no distinction in that regard with any other year. So you still stick to the same time frame that you would normally do the burning of chometz, right? So you do your burning of chometz before 10:45 in the morning. That's the time. That's the times for this year. GMT, okay? I'll try and make this as clear as possible, yeah? 10:45 in the morning is the time you should be burning your chometz by. However, and this is important, if, for example, you forgot or whatever, right, you can burn your chometz later in the day because Friday is the 13th of Nisan, right? So if for whatever reason you didn't manage, you didn't make that time, whatever, you can still do it even later on, but it should be done as normal. And that's so that we don't get any confusion between this year and any other year. The difference, though, of course, is that all we are doing on Friday morning, yeah, is burning chometz, right? We're not doing a bittul then. There's no need to nullify the chometz. And that's because we're still going to be having chometz later on that day, if you would like to have chometz later that day, and the chometz that you're going to be leaving over for Friday night and Shabbos morning, which we will come to. Now, when it comes to the mechira, the selling of chometz, which we publicized today, effectively that takes place in the same way as any other year. The only real difference, though, is of course we're doing it a day earlier, and therefore we're doing it on the 13th in the morning, and therefore because of that we do need to take into account the fact that there are people who are going to want something to eat on Friday afternoon. There is some discussion about whether one can have chometz on Friday afternoon. Halachically, it is absolutely fine to have chometz on Friday afternoon. There is no problem at all. You can have chometz for lunch on Friday. You can have a snack in the afternoon before Shabbos. It's not a problem. But we will already have sold the chometz, okay? So what we do when we sell the chometz this year is I will specify to the goy that I am excluding from the sale those bits of chometz that people are leaving over for consumption on Friday afternoon, or the minimal amount necessary for the Shabbos meals, as we'll come to, okay? So all that means, and this is important, is that just be very careful what you are leaving over. And that's because anything that you do leave over, chometz-wise, for the afternoon of Friday or for Shabbos, yeah, as we'll come to, is not going to be included in the sale. You with me? So in other words, what that means is you don't think to yourself, well, it doesn't matter, I'll leave over whatever I like all over the house, different places, and then whatever I don't use, I'll stick in the cupboard to be sold with the stuff that's sold to the goy. It's not. Are you with me? Because we're deliberately excluding the stuff from the sale that you want to keep to eat the rest of that day and on Shabbos. So just leave over whatever you need, and whatever you don't need, end up not needing. I don't know, let's say you and I have I don't know, everyone's having croissants on Friday afternoon. I don't know, whatever. I mean, I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate. Most people are not going to have major amounts of chometz around, right? But there is a limit to what you can eat. So let's say you want to have loads of croissants on Friday afternoon, and for whatever reason, you don't end up, I don't know, the family, no one wants croissants. You're left with a load of croissants, okay? Whatever, okay? What are you going to do with that? You're going to destroy it, right? That's what you're going to do. You're going to destroy it. You're going to get rid of it. And that is because it's not going to be, those bits that you're leaving over for that day and the next day are not going to be included in the sale. So I hope that's clear. So that's Friday. That's Friday. Now, obviously, your house is going to be done for Pesach. So one has, you're going to be very careful where you eat and how you eat. Don't make it. Obviously, it goes without saying, one's not going to spread chometz all over the house. This is quite clear. There's something else that's very important to do on a Friday, and this way it's the same as a regular year. And that is, effectively, you're going to treat it as Erev Pesach in the sense of the preparations for the Seder. And that's because you cannot do anything on Shabbos at all to prepare for the Seder. And there are certain things that one can't prepare even on Yom Tov itself. There are certain things that we're used to doing on Erev Pesach for that reason. For example, preparing the chorosis, right? Or grating the maror. All these things that you would normally do on an Erev Pesach, this year, you're going to do them on Friday afternoon. All those normal preparations for the Seder. You're going to prepare the salt water, open the matzahs and the wine, all that stuff you want to do on the Friday, okay? Okay, so if you didn't and forgot things, we'll come back to that, all right? But at the moment, let's go through it in order as how it should be, okay? You do all your Seder preparations on the Friday afternoon. And then the other point to point out, the last point to make about Friday is that the normal restrictions of Erev Pesach in the afternoon do not apply on Friday, okay? So you've got no problem because Friday's the 13th of Nisan. So you've got no problem having a haircut, for example, on the afternoon of Friday, if you want. I mean, go find a hairdresser. That's a different question. Maybe we'll come back to that later. But in principle, yeah, the restrictions Friday, those restrictions do not apply because it's the 13th and not the 14th of Nisan. Okay. We come to Friday night. Now, when it comes to the Shabbos meals, Friday night and Shabbos morning, you basically have two options, okay? And both options are equally valid, okay? They're equally valid. Let's begin with the option which involves chametz, okay? When it comes to Friday night and Shabbos morning, and the Shabbos meals in general, it is, absolutely advisable in every way that the meals are Pesachdik, right? It's very, very difficult. And Halacha describes and discusses how you could theoretically have a chometz meal in theory, right, on a Friday night, right? But practically speaking, it involves unended, complications. You're not going to want to go down that route, right? You're going to want to have everything Pesachdik. Run into all sorts of problems as to how you're going to clean the vessels, the pot. You can imagine, right? It's very complicated. And therefore, I'm not really going to even discuss that because I'm just going to assume that everyone is going to just use regular Pesachdik food for the meals of Shabbos. Okay, for the meals of Shabbos. However, like every Shabbos, we have a chiyuv of lechem mishnah. You have to have challahs. You have to have some way of washing, right? For as we'll see, for at least the two meals, at least Friday night and Shabbos morning. And how are you going to do that? So option and method one is to have minimal amounts of challah. The advice usually given is to use pita bread because pita bread doesn't make crumbs. It's a nice sort of size. It doesn't leave you with a massive amount of leftovers. You can measure what you need for your family, right? Now, when I say how much are you going to eat? You're not going to eat a regular amount that you would eat on Shabbos, right? There's a certain amount. You have to have the size of a kibetza, an egg size, in order to wash or whatever. So you're having less than that, right? You're having the regular amount that you would have on Shabbos, all right? But what you are doing is you're making sure, of course, that there's no cross-contamination here between Pesach and Chometz, which is very, very important. So how exactly you achieve this is going to be dependent on your own personal home circumstances and situations. It might be beautiful weather, and you might decide that you want to make kiddush and hamotzi in the garden, for example, and you're going to make kiddush there. You're going to have hamotzi there. You should have intention that you're going to finish the meal inside. That's to do with brachas, moving inside and outside. Okay, but that's one option. Might not be such a great option for the nighttime Friday night. So you can eat it very simply. You're going to put, let's say, a plastic tablecloth on the table, and you're going to sit around the table with the family. You're going to make kiddush. You're going to make hamotzi on, let's say, paper plates, for example, and you're going to have distribute the pita. You're going to finish it off, and then all you're going to do is simply shake off the crumbs from the tablecloth on the. You can shake them on the floor and then sweep them up and throw the crumbs in the toilet. You can shake the tablecloth directly down the toilet. We don't have to be so prescriptive. You need to bear in mind, and we'll come back to this if we talk a little bit about general b'dikas chometz, not to do with Erev Pesach on Shabbos. You need to bear in mind that per se, the crumbs on the floor are basically irrelevant, right? They are the little tiny crumbs on the floor are not relevant. They are just irrelevant, right? They're bottled, they're dirty, there's nothing there that's significant, right? Now, obviously, people are going to want to, you want to feel comfortable as normal. So you sweep the floor with a broom in a dustpan and brush, right? And then you throw those crumbs down the toilet and you're done. Then, okay, obviously you're not benching because you're still having your Shabbos meal. You then bring out your Pesach stuff. You're going to have a regular meal. It could be that some people might be comfortable using paper, but there's no reason to, because you finish with your chometz, right? You can use your Pesach kelim, right? There's nothing wrong with using your Pesach kelim now for the rest of the meal and having a regular Pesach meal, right? This is still Friday night, okay? When you've, the one thing that you do need to be to be careful about, and as I said, I don't think it's that relevant because I don't think anyone is cooking anything chometz, as we said, is you don't want to have anything chometz near any Pesach kelim at all, obviously. Yeah, it just goes without saying. So, you're not pouring from a chometz keli into a Pesach keli. You're with me. No one's going to be doing that anyway. So we're fine, I think, with that. Again, you'll pull me up afterwards if there's anything I've missed out or anything that's unclear. So that is where we are for Friday night. Now, I will come back to the second option and where you do this whole Shabbos afterwards. Let's continue so far on this track. Shabbos morning, we did deliberate about the time. Sorry, Ben, have you got a question on something unclear? Because you've raised your hand.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you need to make Kiddush and Hamoitzi in the same place, or can you have Kiddush and your meal at the table on with all your Pesach kelim, and then you go into the garden?
So I lost you there.
Sorry, is that?
If you're comfortable having it in two different places because you feel more comfortable doing it that way, then that's fine. You should just have in mind that you're going to be moving to another location. Okay, so you could start off with your Kiddush and Hamoitzi in if you want to, for example.
The question is, do you have to have Kiddush and Hamoitzi in the same place?
Yeah. You should have Kiddush and
at the table
in the same place.
Yeah,
absolutely. Kiddush should be tied to Hamoitzi. That's right. You should do Kiddush and Hamoitzi in the same place, and then the rest of the meal, if that's the way you want to do it, from the kitchen to the dining room, whatever you want to do, whatever works for you, it's not a problem. Just have that in mind, okay? I can see a couple of other.
And one other question on it was, if you're then going to use all your Pesach kelim, do you have to wash your mouth out in case you've got crumbs of bread?
We'll come to that. Yeah. If you're going to use Pesach kelim, I think that would be advisable. Thank you for pointing that out. That's right. Yes, that'd be a good idea. We're going to talk about. Joanna, was that your question too? Was that? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about cleaning the mouth the next day, obviously before the time when you finish eating chometz. But you're absolutely right. If you're going to be using Pesach kelim, then the sensible thing to do would be to clean your mouth up before doing so. You can use a dry toothbrush. You can use mouthwash. Whatever. Just yeah. So we'll come back to that also when we talk about Shabbos morning. Anyone else? I see a couple of others have raised hands here. Yeah, Josh, you've got a question? Joshua?
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi. When you sell the chometz and you're putting aside the chometz that you have in mind to eat on Friday, how specific do you have to be? What is your expectation for the form?
Oh, so the form is unchanged. You don't have to worry about that.
You have to be very specific.
No, you don't have to worry about that on the form.
Okay.
You're including on the form whatever you're selling. The form itself makes it clear. You don't have to go into the exact details of what you're selling. You just give an amount of what it's worth. Okay. You don't include in that amount the minimal bits that you're keeping back to eat. You just have that in your mind.
Okay.
It's not going to be a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be a little bit. You're going to put it in a box, whatever you need for Friday afternoon and Shabbos. That's all you're doing. So that's and it's really just when I sell it, I'm specifying that that's not included in the sale, so that you're still going to be using that after the sale is done. The whole issue of selling chometz this year is fascinating halachically, but for a practical based halachic share, we'll concentrate, you know what I mean, on what we need to know, which is the most important and useful thing. Has anyone else got any questions on anything I've said so far that you'd like to raise at this point, or we're okay to keep going? Okay, fine. So let's go. Let's carry on. So Shabbos morning, we did deliberate quite a bit about the issue of the clocks. We felt it was, for two reasons, clearer and easier to just stay the same as the clocks are nationally. There are people doing other things, but we feel it's much more straightforward just to do whatever the clocks should read. Okay, so on Shabbos we are using GMT for all our times, and when we get to Sunday morning we will then switch to BST. Now obviously you can't change your clocks on Shabbos, so you will make your own decisions as to whether you are in BST mode from Erev Shabbos or you're on GMT until Monday night. Just be careful, whatever you are in, just remember what the right time is, okay? We'll publicize all the times very clearly to make so that it's absolutely clear the times that we are sending out. Everything I'm saying now, Shabbos morning. Yes, that's a very good suggestion. Thank you, Julie. That's absolutely right. You can set another clock in the house to GMT time. Absolutely. That's another way of doing it. 2 time zones. Yeah. So So very helpful. So we're on GMT. Shabbos morning we're going to be davening at 6:30 GMT, and the reason we are davening at 6:30 is because the last time you can eat chometz, according to the way minhag is in our kehillah, is 9:25 a.m. Yes, it's true. You will see a later time that is publicized in some places. There are other killers that follow a later time. Our minhag is to follow the time of 9:25 a.m., which is based on the Mogen Avraham. So we will finish davening. It will be a quick davening in shul. We will aim to finish by probably around 8:10, which means that people can be home for around about 8:30. Now, then what you're going to do on Shabbos morning is you're basically going to do an exact repeat of Friday night. You can do exactly the same as Friday night, which is you're going to be, again, it might be very nice to be in the garden if you want, yeah? Just be careful, though, about the garden. Although little crumbs on the floor in the garden is not a problem, yeah? That's not a problem. But just because you're in the garden doesn't mean you can leave in the garden a kazayas size of bread, okay? The fact that it's in the garden, you can't leave that. It's still in your property. It's still in your domain. You can't rely on a bird coming along and taking up, are you with me? So just because you're in the garden doesn't mean you can leave chunks of chometz around, okay? Little crumbs on the floor, not a problem, but you're going to want to remove all chometz, whether you're inside the house or outside the house. That's important. So you are again making kiddush and hamoitzi, then you're coming in, then you whatever you're either in that location or different location, same thing, clearing up everything, clearing all the chometz away, and then you're having your it'll be a breakfast really. You're really going to have breakfast, and that's going to be your second Shabbos meal. Before 9:25 in the morning, what you want to make sure that you do is you're going to brush off, obviously you can brush off your clothing, everything else. You're going to clean your teeth. As I said, you can use a dry toothbrush, or you can just use mouthwash, whatever. Dry toothbrush will be helpful if there's chometz in your teeth. And the same thing, you're going to sweep the floor, remove all the crumbs, throw all the crumbs into the toilet, and hopefully you should have no chometz left after that. That's the idea. You should have no chometz left after that at all. In the event that you are somehow, for some unknown reason, left with, I don't know, a chunk of bread that you can't crumble up and throw into the toilet, which, let's hope you're not in that position. If you are, the best suggestion I can probably give you is, since we benefit from the privilege of having an Eruv, is I will put it in a dustbin in the park. Now, I don't want to recommend that everyone goes along, right, and troops down and puts all their chometz in a public bin, okay? So please try and avoid that if you can. We don't want any chilul Hashem here. But as I said, it's just useful little bit of knowledge to have in the back of your mind. If for some reason you are left with something at the end, then that's what you do. What you cannot do, my friends, is put it away with the stuff that you've sold, as I explained, because that stuff wasn't included in the sale, the stuff that you left over to use on Shabbos morning. So you're gonna have to get rid of it somehow, okay? And listen, I'm only, you know where I live, 89 Shihol Park. So if I get people running around to my house at 8 a.m. Shabbos morning, what do I do? What do I do? It's not a problem, we'll sort you out. But let's try and make sure we all know what we're doing as far as possible.
Can you feed it to the birds or the ducks?
No, you're not going to do that on Shabbos. You can't do that on Shabbos, so that's not an option either.
Can you spray it with Dettol? I thought.
Yeah, that you could theoretically bleach it until it's. You could do that. Yeah, you could put bleach over it until it's inedible. Not, a dog wouldn't eat it, and that would also work as well. I mean, exactly. I mean, but there are other things. For example, technically, in halacha it discusses giving it as a present to a friendly Gentile neighbor. But these things are complicated, and I think it's better to avoid them if you can, right? To get rid of them that way. A few people are raising questions at this point. Anyone else? Just
would there not be a practical problem with the toothbrush? Because if you've got chometz in your mouth, potentially, you then use a toothbrush. Yeah. What do you do with the toothbrush when you finish?
Very good question. You're going to wash off the toothbrush when you finish brushing your teeth, and you're going to stick it away somewhere with the chometz. Once you've cleaned it, there's no more chometz on it. You just wash, you rinse it off. There's no more chometz on it, and then you're just obviously not going to use the same toothbrush as a regular year. You're going to use different toothbrushes for Pesach. Question that's being asked at the bottom here is at least in the chat, is Let me just open the chat 1 second. Yes, actual, can you use actual bleach on Shabbos? Yeah, you can use bleach if necessary for these purposes in order to destroy to destroy the chametz in that way. So that is okay. Cholent. Now, whether or not you decide to have cholent at 9 a.m., I see this question being raised. That is your decision. That is your choice. I'm not going to tell you what you want to have, what you need to have for breakfast. But what I am going to say is as follows. I don't want to overly complicate things, so I want to make this very, very clear. The most important thing you need to do, is have those 2 meals on Shabbos with challah. Okay. There is a problem as to what to do with the 3rd meal of Shabbos, Suda Shlishis. Okay. And there are different ways of dealing with that problem, but what we want to concentrate on is the primary thing that you need to do. So is everyone clear? And we'll come to Suda Shlishis in a second, but is everyone clear on these 2 meals so far? Yeah, we all good with that? Okay. Now, after 9:25 in the morning, a couple of questions. Yeah, please do interrupt if you like.
Hi, Rabbi. I just wanted to ask you about the you said about mouthwash.
Yeah.
Can you use regular mouthwash on Pesach?
So as long as you're before 9:25 in the morning, then you could use your regular mouthwash. The only thing is that once you get to past the time Pesach, you should use mouthwash that's on the list. Check the KLBD list, whatever's on the list. That's what you should use for Pesach. You shouldn't use regular mouthwash on Pesach. You should use whatever's on the list. That's the case. So I'm just thinking the truth is that here you're probably going to want to use that same mouthwash. Otherwise, it's going to get really complicated, isn't it? You're going to have you're going to have that stuff away. So you could just you can wash your mouth out with the Pesach, the Pesach mouthwash. Put it in a plastic cup if you want, and then put that in your mouth. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, easy to use the Pesach mouthwash. Yeah, Joanna, was that?
No, I was going to just say, if you use regular mouthwash, you haven't sold it because you haven't put it away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Let's keep it simple. You got your Pesach mouthwash, not a problem. And if you're worried about crumbs in your mouth, whatever, so you're putting it in a plastic cup or something like that, put a bit of it aside and you'll use that to Can
I just ask about the toothbrushes? Because I normally use Pesach as the day that I chuck away my old toothbrush and take out a new one. So if I now put my old toothbrush in the bin, is that problematic in terms of owning chametz?
No, because you're going to wash it out beforehand. You're going to rinse the toothbrush off beforehand, so there's no more chametz on it. Then you're going to stick it in the bin. So that's fine.
Okay.
Shelley, you had a question. I'm trying to follow who. I don't know who.
Hello, sorry, it's Paul here. Hello.
Oh, Paul. Sorry, Paul.
Good evening. Apologies, I came a bit late, so you may already have answered this, Rabbi Birnbaum. But the 9:25, or exactly what time, the cut-off time, presumably as long as you've eaten all the chometz part, you can carry on actually eating the meal beyond that point, or not? Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. The 9:25 cutoff is about chometz, and even the other stuff like the cleaning, the sweeping the floor, the throwing the remaining crumbs down the toilet, that sort of stuff. Yeah, you've got till 10:45. Okay, because that's the time you've got to destroy chometz by. Yeah, so the 9:25. All you got to make sure you do before 9:25 is, if you're not such an early person, all you need to do is make sure that you've had kiddush and hamotzi, and you've finished off whatever you're going to eat. You've cleaned your mouth out, because that's important as well. And then you've got a bit more time after that to clean up whatever's left, and obviously you can finish the meal as well. All right. Any other questions on these points? Okay, let's carry on. So when it comes to okay, so the question then arises, and we're still with the chometz mode of how to do this with chometz. You now finished all your chometz because the time has now arrived. Now it's very, very important that before 10:45 in the morning, before that time, which is the final time you have to destroy chometz by, on Shabbos morning, you do the bittul. Okay, I say it's very important for 2 reasons. Number one, normally we remember to do the nullification of the chometz, the bittul, the morning bittul, because we know we burn the chometz, right? And straight afterwards you do the bittul. Well, you're not going to be burning chometz. It's easy to forget. It's very important to remember that on Shabbos morning. And this year it's especially important because of those, as I explained, about the chometz that's being left over, not included in the sale. So please do make sure that you do that bittul on Shabbos morning. That's very, very important. When that's again, so the bittul, the kol chamira has to be said before 10:45 in the morning. After that time, if there happens to be any chometz left over, there shouldn't be, then obviously it's muktzah, right? You can't move it, right? And that applies if you've somehow got some chometz that you covered with bleach or whatever it is. Yeah, hopefully we can avoid that. So there you are in terms of now. There is a question as to what we do about the third meal of Shabbos. Okay. Well, Shulchan Aruch says very, very simply that the third meal of Shabbos you will fulfill at the normal time. At lunchtime, you're going to have a lunchtime meal. You're going to have meat, fish, whatever you're going to have, a completely Pesach separate meal. Everyone is going to have another meal that day, okay? You're not going to finish, whether you're having cholent for breakfast or not. I strongly do not advise you to have nothing else to eat until the Seder, okay? For obvious reasons, all right? But because it's Erev Pesach now, yeah, you can now no longer have chometz, and you can no longer have matzah, right? You can't have matzah, you can't have chometz. So what are you going to do? You're just going to have a regular meal. You're going to have fish, you're going to have meat, whatever you normally have as a Pesach meal. Okay, very, very straightforward. But that will be your Suda Shlishis. Normally, of course, the third meal of Shabbos you need to wash, but that's not possible here, and therefore we fulfill Shalosh Shudas with other significant foods. If you're interested in understanding more of the ins and outs of this whole thing, then I'm going to be giving a shir Shabbos Mincha this week, which you're welcome to come along and hear all the background to it and how that works. There is something else suggested in halacha, which, as I said, it's a good thing to do, but it is not essential. So I don't want anyone going crazy about this and stressing over this particular idea, but there are those who also like to split the meal in the morning into two, yeah? To have Shalosh Shudas in the morning, because there are some opinions that hold you can have Shalosh Shudas in the morning. Not everyone agrees you can. There is a mainstream view that Shalosh Shudas can only be had after mincha time, 6.5 halachic hours into the day, like whatever that is, whatever the earliest time to have mincha, which that day is pardon? 12:41, whatever it is, 12:41 exactly. So which is clearly well after the time, okay? But there are opinions that say you can have you can fulfill the mitzvah of Shalosh Shudas even in the morning. So a good thing to do for those who are able and would like to do it is very simply to do everything we've discussed, except you would come in from shul, you would wash, you'd have kiddush, wash, you would then have enough pita bread for a kibetza, size of an egg. You would then bench, have a short interval in between, go for a little walk, do a bit of learning, whatever it is, and then wash again for another meal of for your third meal, so to speak. All that would have to be done by the same time, before 9:25 in the morning. Okay. Even if you are doing that, and I must stress, it is not essential. Good, nice thing to do if you can, but it is not essential. Even if you are doing that, you will still be having a Shalosh Shudas later on, right? As we said, without washing, which is going to be your fish and regular lunchtime Pesach meal. Okay, so hopefully that's clear enough. I do want to mention something in the context of chometz. It's relevant every year, but it's particularly relevant this year, and that is an issue with those who have metal braces. Okay, because those who have braces, there's an issue with hot chometz within 24 hours because you can't really cush them because they're in your mouth. Yeah, so this is what you should. A child who has got metal braces should not have boiling hot chometz within 24 hours of the time when you're no longer allowed to consume chometz. Yeah. Now that shouldn't really be an issue because everyone's going to be having Pesach chicken soup. You with me? But it's just worth and important to point out. If you do have a detachable dental apparatus that can be kashered in boiling water without ruining it, then that's what you should do. Wait 24 hours after use if possible. Then you wait 24 hours after use, and then you will put it in bubbling water. But that depends on whether or not the dental piece will be ruined as to whether you can or can't do that. 2 people have raised their hands. Is that chometz questions or a question on this? Yeah. Please do interrupt unless it. Yeah. Josh,
Rabbi. So yeah. Yes. Is there any time constraint that you have to have benched by on Shabbos morning? So I understand the cutoff time for eating chometz, but you have to bench by a certain time.
No, that's a good question. There isn't any restriction in terms of the benching. The issue with the food is a chometz thing, right? So as long as you finish your chometz, you can carry on eating. It's kind of going to be a breakfast, so probably people are not going to go on for, do you know what I mean, a very long time that morning. But whatever, there isn't a particular. It's not a restriction in the benching time there. Anyone else? Anyone else? No. Okay, we're good. Fine. Okay, so we're up to now. Question from the Newmans. Mrs. Newman, do you have a question? Oh, Johnny.
Yeah, hi. Just to clarify, is there an issue with there needing to be the lechem mishnah or some sort of bread on the table when we're having our meal on Shabbos morning, and that would be a reason to have to finish the meal by the 9:25? Ideally, that's what we normally do on a Shabbos. Absolutely, with the bread on the table. In this case, it's not possible. In this case, it's not possible. I don't think you have to finish your meal in the morning before 9:25. I think all you need to do is make sure that you finish your chometz, and the fact that you don't have any more. The fact that you don't have the bread there when benching is a function of the nature of this day. Do you understand? So we can forego that on Erev Pesach, right? I mean, if you want to do it that way and keep it to normal and bench before 9:25, you can, right? But what I'm saying is it isn't necessary if you don't wish to do it that way. You can, as long as you get rid of it. Okay. Is that Danny? You got a question there?
Yeah, is there a necessity to repeat Kol Chamira after the 9:25 cutoff?
Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, once. You say Kol Chamira once in the morning before 10:45.
On Shabbos morning.
Absolutely. Essential. That's right. You're saying Kol Chamira in the nighttime on the Thursday evening, the normal nusach that we say in the normal text that you say in the nighttime, and on the second one, you're going to say Shabbos morning before 10:45. Absolutely essential. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so we come on to, we've now arrived in this track, we've arrived at Shabbos afternoon. There is another option. There are some people who, understandably, I can really understand it, cannot cope with this. Can't do it, right? Chometz in the house, they can't do it. It's just not worth the stress and the hassle. So we have a wonderful solution. And that solution is perfectly acceptable halachically, and it's something called matzah ashira. Matzah ashira, egg matzahs. Now, Ashkenazi minhag is based on the Ramah, is we do not have egg matzahs on Pesach. Okay, we do not have egg matzahs on Pesach except for someone who is ill or very elderly and needs them for that reason. But otherwise, we don't have them on Pesach. Okay. However, Moshe Feinstein and others say that as long as you finish the egg matzahs before the same time that you're not allowed to have chometz, so the time is the same. You're not going to have, if you're Ashkenazi, by having egg matzahs, it's not going to make a difference to having to daven early and having to have your meal early. It's not going to make a difference. All it's going to save you is not having any chometz around. Okay. If you don't want to have any chometz around, then you can use the egg matzah option. And that means you can wash on Friday night with these egg matzahs, and you can have egg matzahs on Shabbos morning. Again, finish them before 9:25 because of the Ashkenazi minhag. We don't have egg matzahs on Pesach, and that includes Erev Pesach as well. Now, egg matzahs, technically speaking, might be or would be, I think, mazonos, unless you have a really large quantity, about like kind of 8 ounces, which is a huge amount of egg matzahs. However, because you're having them as your Suda of Shabbos, then they have a significance, even a regular amount. So you would only need to have as much as you would normally have of matzah for them. Are you with me, right? So if you do go down the egg matzah route, that is fine. Just make sure to put them away so that you're not going to use them on the rest of Pesach. And the other thing which is really important to point out with egg matzahs is that you need to check that it's a good hechsher, because there are different hechsherim. I'm not even giving views on hechsherim, but it is, this is what I've heard, that one has to just keep an eye on and make sure that it's a decent hechsher if you are using egg matzahs. Anyone?
Yeah, sorry, Rabbi Birnbaum, very quick question. Sorry about the background. My kids know more about it than I do. Just about egg matzahs and the time of matzah just before the Seder. So, I mean, we've always had a very strong minhag to not eat matzah just beforehand. is it preferable to have the egg matzahs over having chometz, or, and you know, this is just a strong minhag that we want to, you know, that we keep, but you know, in the case where, you know, we should, it's about, I'm just wondering which one's better to do if you've got a choice between the two.
Yeah, there isn't a better or worse here, right? It is a matter of personal family preference, choice. It is dependent on lots of factors. It's a decision you'll make. Perhaps, you know, those with little kids around might find this just can't manage it, so they'll go with the egg matzah route. The whole point of egg matzahs, and why it's not a contradiction to the taste of matzah before Seder, is in the name. Matzah ashira means rich man's bread, which is why you can't use it for Seder night. It's not poor man's bread. It's needed with fruit juice or whatever it is, right? So because of that, it's no contradiction to the taste of matzah, you know, having taste of matzah in advance. Okay. It's perfectly acceptable, again, as long as you stick to the same timeline and you're finishing it by before 9:25.
You don't need to destroy the egg matzah like you would.
No, that's right. You don't need to destroy the egg matzah. But you don't want to have it. You're going to put it away somewhere. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Why? So I can understand why you don't have it on the Sidorim, because it's a rich man's matzah rather than a poor man's matzah. But why can't you have it the rest of Yom Tov? What's the reason for that?
Oh, with the egg matzahs. So I think it was the Ashkenazi concern was a concern over chometz, if my memory serves me correctly. There were concerns over the possibility that it wouldn't be done correctly. If my memory serves me correctly, there were concerns over that, and that's why we don't have it on the rest of Pesach. Okay, so that's why it would make sense that the minhag applies from the time when you can no longer have chometz. I mean, I'm speaking in very general terms. Do you see what I mean? But basically, that in a nutshell, that's why you're only going to have it till 9:25. Okay.
Can you be kaveya the Shabbos with 2 reviers of wine instead of hametzi?
No, not for Friday night Shabbos morning. For Friday night and Shabbos morning, you're going to use either of these 2 options. Okay. You're going to either for the Friday night meal and Shabbos morning, you either have to do the chometz route or the egg matzah route. Unfortunately, I can't give you a third route. There can be fascinating discussions for another time, maybe about whether there are possibilities, but it's not halachically, practically speaking, those are the 2 options. I think Melvin, you're asking something here about egg matzah on normal Pesach plates. It's a good question. I don't think you should be using normal Pesach plates for egg matzah. No, I think that you should be using paper for egg matzah. Don't keep it anywhere with the Pesach plates, because you know we have that, as I said, because of the Ashkenazi practice about using egg matzahs on Pesach. But as I said, it's not chometz, right? That's we in the sense that we don't have to all these concerns. In terms of another question I'm being asked here, which is about whether it doesn't have to be pizza bread. If you want to have challah, that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. You want to have challah instead of pizza bread Friday night, Shabbos morning, not a problem. No problem at all. The only reason saying pizza bread is simply because some people will say, okay, listen, I can manage that better. It's going to make less crumbs. This is a personal thing, not a problem, right? As long as you can get rid of it. So we've done the 2 options, right? And now we come to the, oh, by the way, yes, the meal in the afternoon, lunchtime, you can have knei delach. Erev Pesach, you can't have baked matzah, meal, right? Because of the problem of the Seder, So you can't have matzah meal, cake, and that sort of stuff if you're a gebrocht person. But what you can do is you can have boiled matzah meal, knei delach, right? Is okay. That's just if you like that type of thing. There you are. So now you come to the best thing about Erev Pesach on Shabbos. The number 1 highlight is you now finished your meal early. You've got lunch coming up, but otherwise you've got an empty day. And this means it's not really empty, it's Shabbos. We can do wonderful things to learn. There's so much you can do on Shabbos. But the point is this is the one time for the 13 years where you can actually get a shluffin on Erev Pesach, which is a decent rest, hopefully, and everyone can hopefully be awake for the Seder, which is wonderful. The one thing you should not do is you should not specifically say verbally that you are resting so as to be awake for the Seder, right? It doesn't matter if you're thinking it. You should not say that verbally, because that might be a concern of preparing for after Shabbos. And you see from that the importance of not not preparing on Shabbos for the Seder night. So that's very, very important. It might be tempting to do little bits and pieces for the Seder. You can't do any preparation whatsoever for Seder night on Shabbos. You can't do anything on Shabbos for Yom Tov. Let me think. Right, what else is there about Shabbos day? Yes, the other reason why we wanted to keep the times to GMT is because we felt, especially for those with young kids, it makes a big difference if you can start the Seder earlier. Yeah, you can't. I mean, I know it's all a game because it's the time, but in terms of the timings, but it means that you'll be able to start the Seder. I mean, okay, technically you'll be able to start at 7:17 by the time you go from shul, whatever. Let's say it'll be around, around 8 o'clock. When we get to Motzei Shabbos, so it's now Yom Tov night. So as I said before, all the preparations you would normally do for the Seder, you're going to want to do those preparations. You have to do those preparations on a Friday. So you're going to ask me, what happens if I forgot? I forgot to prepare the Great Morah, or I forgot to prepare the Choroses or whatever. So if you forget, then with the Morah, what you're going to do is you're going to grate it with a shinui in an unusual way. You're going to use the underside of the grater, or you're going to cut it finely with a knife just before the Seder. It has to be somach l'suda, so just before the Seder. That's what you would do if you didn't do it before Shabbos. Obviously not till Motzei Shabbos. You don't do this till Motzei Shabbos. Choroses, which you want to make before, again, you want to make that on the Friday. If you didn't and you forgot, what do? You make it as a loose, this is again Motzei Shabbos on Yom Tov, before the Seder. You make it as a loose mixture. You reverse the order of how you normally put them in. So if you put the wine in and then the apples or whatever you do, so you're going to reverse the normal order you do it in. And number 3, you're going to mix it in an unusual manner. So not in a circular motion, but in a crisscross motion. So that's how you prepare your choroses if you forgot to do it on the Friday. With salt water, you should also prepare on the Friday, but if you forgot, you reverse the order again of do it in an unusual way, and you only do a small amount, not a huge amount of salt water, and you do a ratio of less than 2/3 salt to 1/3 water. So that is going to save you if you forget any of those 3 things, the Morah, the Choroses, and the salt water. That is what you will do on Motzei Shabbos. Johnny, you asking a question?
So with the Morah, obviously it loses its bitterness the longer you leave it. So in a way, is it not better to prepare it on Seder night itself?
That's an interesting one. You can do it in this way, but I think it's better to prepare it before. I think it's better to prepare it before Shabbos, and then it's done. It's you don't have to start remembering to do it in an unusual way. I think it's easier to prepare it before, wrap it up, and hopefully it will keep leave enough nice big chunks. In my experience, it's only the grated bits which lose their strength. Any nice decent sized chunks seem to stay quite strong in my experience. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that as well. But anyway, what you don't want to leave Morah, whether lettuce or because it's also going to be obviously the same thing. You want to check the lettuce before before Shabbos as well. Yeah, check the lettuce for the bugs. Now, what is important to bear in mind is no Morah, whether lettuce or grain, should not leave it in water for 24 hours over Shabbos. Do not leave in water, because what that does is it cooks it halachically. Okay, so don't leave the lettuce in water. It's fine to you're going to prepare it before and sort of but take it out of water. Don't leave it in water. Okay. So that is in terms of the Seder. Remember to say Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh LaKodesh before doing anything once Shabbos is out, before doing any Seder preparations. And then, and I think that should probably explain. I think I've covered most things in terms of Erev Pesach and Shabbos. Can anyone think of anything else?
Yeah, Rabbi, you said about that on Shabbos at lunchtime you can have kanedela because you can have cooked matzah meal. But what about baked matzah meal? Does that mean you can't have cakes and biscuits because it's baked?
That's right, exactly. Baked matzah meal is considered to be too similar to matzah. So you run into the problem of having matzah on Erev Pesach. It's important to bear in mind that although there are minhagim, we have very strong minhagim not to have matzah. Some do from Purim, some from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? But that's all a minhag. Erev Pesach is halachically forbidden to have matzah, right? On Erev Pesach itself. There's a debate whether that starts, first thing in the morning. I think most opinions hold that begins from daybreak. So it's halachically forbidden then. It's not a minhag, it's stronger than that, right? So because of that, we avoid anything that is even similar, that has matzah in that way. But boiled, the knedlach is totally removed from obviously from the taste of matzah at the Seder. So that's why that's okay. There are other things I'm going to deal with in terms of Pesach as a whole. Has anyone got any other questions on the order for Erev Pesach? If this all sounds far, too complicated, I'm going to put together a crib sheet, right? Hopefully, have that by the beginning of next week. I know there are all sorts going around. There are lots of wonderful stuff out there. The Federation have done a great one that's very, very clear and everything else. But I think it's nice to have one that's kind of attuned to our Kehillah with the times that we're using and some of the things that I've mentioned tonight. So I'm going to hopefully put that together to try and make things as easy as possible. Any other questions on that? We're okay.
What time will we be davening mincha then?
What time will we be davening mincha? So the experts on the times of davening are with us in this Zoom room. So they will be able to, now is their moment of fame.
Don't we daven with just an hour before Mariv as usual? Yes, why would it be any different?
That's right. But what time is that, Daniel?
You're having Shalosh Shudas this time before Mincha.
Yeah. We're having Shalosh Shudas before Mincha, which most of us, when we've all been doing the whole winter anyway, in terms of we've all been having Shalosh Shudas early anyway because of the way, the restrictions on what we can and can't do COVID-wise. No Shalosh Shudas in short. But Daniel, the time, Daniel?
I can check. It'll be it was something like either 10 past or 6:15, I assume.
Yeah, it's normal time, basically, pretty much normal time. The Shabbos HaGadol drasha this year, the Mishnah Berurah says is the week before. So that's Parshas Vayikra, because we're not going to do, we don't do the Shabbos HaGadol just for the Seder in that way. The whole purpose originally of the Shabbos HaGadol was to talk about the Seder, halachas and things like that, right? Even though we do go into pilpul quite a bit nowadays, but the fact is that was the primary reason, so there's no point doing that when Shabbos already in. On to Johnny, you had a question?
Mincha's at 6:10.
6:10, thank you, Johnny, very helpful. Very, very helpful, there we are. There, when you see, when you need a gubber, you get one. All right, excellent, thank you both.
Can I ask some questions not relating to, or do you want to just finish about Shabbos?
So let me cover firstly the questions that I've been asked, that I've been asked to cover, and then we'll see where we go. We go from there. I think it's important to bear in mind, this is just a general point about this year. Last year, everyone was, really, really focused on the fact that it was in exceptional circumstances, very difficult times. We can't do what we normally do in every area, whatever. Okay, now things are very different this year, but that doesn't mean that we're all completely free of stress. Okay, so it's really important to bear in mind what the basic halacha requires you to do in terms of cleaning for Pesach and what is beyond that. We're all familiar with the fact that when it comes to cleaning for Pesach, we say Yisrael Kadoshim Haim. It's absolutely incredible what we do as a people in our preparations for Pesach. It's amazing, it's wonderful, and we never scorn any minhag in that way, but it's still time we need to know. A lot of people are still, it's an incredibly stressful time. A lot of people have, the kids have only just gone back to school. A lot of people are just now kind of putting their heads in order, let alone anything else. Okay. So we need to basically understand and just be clear on what the basic requirements are. Okay. When it comes to cleaning for Pesach, we need to understand that what we are looking for, what we are cleaning for, is either a kazayas size of chometz, or even less than a kazayas, but it's something that is clean, and you would potentially, someone would potentially eat it, like a pretzel or something like that. Like I mentioned before, the crumbs on the floor are not a problem; they're not relevant. Now, of course, you're going to wash the floor, you're going to clean, get rid of the crumbs and everything else. But it's important to know what the basic halacha is. We're not looking for those tiny crumbs. We're looking for either a kazayas size of anything, even if it's dirty or whatever, or something less than a kazayas, but it's nice and sort of clean in that way. And therefore, you got to think about the particular places where it specifically you might find these things. There are always conflicts in life, and that means you can't necessarily do everything we always want to do. So we have to know what we are required halachically to do. So, for example, let me just give you, let's just go through a few basic examples, and I'm really not covering everything here. So, it's just a little few pointers, and you will contact me privately or afterwards, whatever, you want more clarity on this. But for example, there is no obligation to move things in the house which are not normally moved. Okay, there isn't a requirement, according to the basic halacha, to move your washing machine, to move your fridge. If you do it and you've always done it, great, go ahead. I'm not telling you not to, but I'm trying to just say that you don't have to if things are difficult, things which are not going to get moved over Pesach. There's no chance of them being moved. You don't need to move them to check the chometz underneath. Yeah, you may want to stick a hoover, or hoover the crumbs that you can see underneath it, whatever. Of course, that's a good thing to do. But things that would not normally be moved in the normal course of cleaning the house do not need to be moved in terms of checking for chometz. You're asking, the Gemara talks about the question of whether a dog would get to it. Now, over lockdown, a lot of people have actually bought dogs. So in that way, you're going to follow that. Would a dog get to it? You'll have to follow that. But if you don't own a dog, then you might be asking yourself, would children get to it? Would they move it? Would it be something like, something like that? Not make any comparisons here between children and dogs, God forbid. Let me just be clear. I'm just saying that, you're going to be, this is the way to think it through. Another question that's asked is that, can you rely on a non-Jewish cleaner to clean for you before Pesach? And the answer is, you can rely on a cleaner to clean for you for Pesach, but obviously the bedika, going around there searching for chometz and checking that everything has been done or whatever, that obviously has to be done by you. So this is how it is. Now, when it comes to that's in terms of the cleaning for chometz. When it comes to eating chometz, or any place where you might come to actually eat it, a crumb on Pesach, that's a much higher level, that's much more serious. And that is because when it comes to chometz on Pesach, is that even the tiniest crumb you're forbidden to eat on Pesach, right? We don't have any idea of nullification of there's no bittul. You don't nullify, you don't say, well, it's the idea of bittul bottle b'shishim nullified in 60, that does not apply to chometz on Pesach, which is why when it comes to the kitchen, we're particularly careful with anywhere that may have come into contact with food on Pesach, right? That's why we're doing all the spotlessly cleaning the surfaces in the kitchen, everywhere else, the cupboards, anything you're going to use on Pesach, of course, right? And the minhag, of course, is therefore also to cover all the sideboards. If you cover all your sideboards with some thick material that is not going to tear, whatever you're going to use, or heavy duty aluminum foil, whatever it is you're going to use to cover your side, if it's not going to tear, then you don't need to worry about kushering those sideboards. If you're completely covering them, you clean them very well, you cover them fully, you don't have to worry. As long as it's not going to tear on Pesach. I know I'm being asked a question about kushering. I'm going to come to kushering in a minute. When it comes to yes, a point which is important to make for this year. Last year, a number of people relied on the selling of new plates, crockery, glassware for Pesach. You remember that? There was a selling, instead of toveling, there was a sale of plates to non-Jews instead of toveling. The mikvos last year, the keli mikvos, were closed. Do you remember that? The Federation had a service where they basically sold your kelim. Now, it's important to remind everyone that this year, unless a person is shielding, isolating, it's not possible, in which case they can do that again. The Federation service is up there again. It is there, possible to do. But if you're not shielding or isolating, then you should be toveling your kelim this year. You should go to a COVID-safe mikveh. I've been told the one in Hendon Adas is very good. So you should go to a COVID-safe mikveh and tovel, not just any new crockery, etc., glassware that you've got for this year, but also stuff that you bought last year. You with me? Because now that we can tovel it, you should do so. When it comes to kushering in general, So the very briefly, the main thing which everyone it's always good to remember how to do is the kashering of your sinks. And the way to do it, the simplest way to do it is you're going to boil up a kettle. And what you need to do is you make sure that the sink is completely clean beforehand. You don't use it for 24 hours. You pour bleach mixed with water so you don't burn anything. Pour bleach mixed with water down the drain in the sink. You do that in case there's a backup of something from the sink. Make sure the sink is not used for 24 hours, okay? And then what you do is you boil up the kettle and you pour it over all parts of the sink directly from the kettle. So what that means is the sink should be dry. So you're going to start from the bottom and work your way upwards in concentric circles, including the bottom part of the sink and also the sides as well. The tap, you're going to turn it to the hottest level. When it's the hottest, when the tap is running with the hottest stream of water, you pour boiling water on top of the tap at the same time, and that's going to kasher your tap as well. Many people have the minhag in addition to also cover the sink with silver foil, but in a halachic sense, it is okay to kasher the sink. Now, obviously, this only applies to stainless steel sinks. Enamel sinks, porcelain sinks can't be kashered, so you can't do those for Pesach. And if you have a sink of that nature, you will need to use an insert. You'll need to use a sink insert. Joshua had a question, Joshua?
In terms of cleaning the sink, surely you need to clean from the outside in, because if you clean from the inside out, you're pouring dirty water from the chometz onto the bit you've just cleaned.
No, because basically what you're doing is you're boiling up. Best to use the Pesach kettle, I think. When you're boiling up your kettle, yeah, and you're boiling up your kettle, and the reason for starting in the middle and working outwards in concentric circles is so the sink is dry. The water should be coming onto a dry surface rather than wet surface, ideally. Yeah. Does that make sense? So there's no chometz. You haven't used the sink 24 hours. The sink is completely clean. You've poured bleach down the thing. The thing is completely clean before you start the kashering. You're waiting 24 hours after the last use, and then you're beginning your kashering. The advice to start from that way and go outwards in a circle from the middle outwards is basically so that you do it in that way. You're sort of covering you're getting to the drier part. If that makes sense. Yeah, the water's going in there. Okay. When it comes to one of the I'm being asked here. That's right. I'm being asked a question about glass dishes. The minhag is not to kasher. We don't kasher glass. We don't kasher glass dishes for Pesach. Glass and plastic as well shouldn't be kasher generally for Pesach. Shouldn't be kasher for Pesach. So the answer is no. Not glass dishes from the year can't be used on Pesach and shouldn't be kashered either. Technically speaking, the sink could be used for cold chometz during that 24-hour period before kashering. The problem is not using it for hot. However, it is advisable just to shut the sink off if you can for those 24 hours, because it's very easy for someone to put the hot tap on and whatever. I think that's a simple and straightforward advice. When it comes to Johnny, you had a question?
Yes, it was just regarding what the rabbi said about using a kettle. I always have this problem every year, but I thought that one's supposed to use a chometz kettle rather than a Pesachdik one. But I can't remember.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you can use either. I saw this somewhere. Hold on a second. One second, I saw this somewhere. Yeah, I think you can use.
Is it not similar to kashering bechers? You can use a chometz stick or a Pesach pot.
Yeah, exactly. I think technically speaking, you can use either. You can use either one. The point is that you haven't.
But is there a preference? Is there a preference? I don't know. I always just. I don't know. I have this problem every year, but from recollection, I thought it was chometz.
One second. Let's see. Someone else had a question just while I'm checking this. Anyone else had a question on this?
With your sink, so it doesn't matter. So you're saying you shouldn't even have hot water on it. Does it matter if it's just hot water and no chametz in the sink?
Hot water. It doesn't matter if it's only hot water and no chametz. So what do you mean? With what?
You said.
Oh no. Yeah, the problem. No, but the problem is before you've kashered it, the sink is chametz. You see, the issue with Pesach, which is unique to Pesach, is this idea of the fact that even things which have been absorbed in the walls, before more than 24 hours before is a problem on Pesach. Yeah, so you're not going to need that. You're not going to use the sink at all. You're not going to kasher it completely this way. Elisheva is kindly telling me that I've always used the Pesach kettle to kasher the sink. So she's reminding me that's what we've always done. So hopefully that will help you on that score. Look. As with all these things, we're not going to cover everything, tonight, right? So whatever we don't, we have other methods of communication if we need to, either me or you communicate to me or whatever, we need to communicate anything else. Okay. I am mindful of the time and I want to make sure that I cover the key points that I was asked to cover. Obviously, if anyone needs to leave, please, I will not be offended, whatever, but we'll try not to go on too much longer. Let's just talk a little bit.
I don't know where it is.
Okay.
I heard it bleep.
Okay, so we're talking. Let's just finish off about kashering. One question I was asked about kashering a sterilizer for bottles, baby bottles, and the issue is, and I've really tried to work on this and see if there's a solution here. The problem is that we don't kasher plastic or glass, and the sterilizer is basically made out of plastic. Sterilizer that has had in it that has been used in the year for baby formula, which is if the formula is chametz. Not all formula is chametz, but if the bottles during the year have been either used with baby formula that is chametz or have been washed up, the bottles washed up with chametz, so they are chametz, right? Then that means that you need new bottles, obviously, and all the other bits and pieces for Pesach. And it also means that I think the only way to sterilize them is going to be with boiling water, or you can get a new sterilizer, but that's a lot of money, to sterilize in boiling water. I don't really see another way of doing it. Obviously, if you've kept the bottles throughout the year completely separate, never wash them up with chametz, only used, there's a whole list, you can get the list from KLBD, you're going to use the formula, which is kosher Pesach, which hasn't got chametz in, then you're not going to have a problem. But that would also mean, obviously, if you wash them up with chametz, then you'd have the same problem as well. So hopefully that helps. I was asked about warming trolleys and kashering. I don't see how you can kasher a warming trolley. I don't think how you can possibly do it. And therefore, if you do want to use a warming trolley on Pesach, you have one of these warming trolleys, then I think the only way to use it is you have two options. Either you double wrap all the food that goes in it on Pesach, or what you want to do is you could cover the insides and the tops, all the sides and all the surfaces and sides with heavy duty silver foil. If you can manage and be bothered, to do that, that's another way of doing it. In a similar vein, it is better, of course, to have a Pesach-dik hot plate, a separately designated, by a separate Pesach-dik hot plate. If you cannot do so for whatever reason, then don't use it for 24 hours, put it on for 45 minutes, for an hour, whatever it is, and then cover it with heavy duty aluminum foil, and then you can use that hot plate on Pesach as well. Whilst we're on the subject of heating food, let's just talk a little bit about ovens. Many people now do manage to have ovens for Pesach. That is absolutely the better thing to do if you can have a designated Pesach-dik oven. If you have an oven which is one of these great ovens that what do they call them? Self-cleaning, yeah. So is that what they're called? Self-cleaning ovens, right? Self-cleaning ovens are great because you can actually run the cycle, because the cycle of the self-cleaning process does what we call libun chomer. It does the highest level of complete burning through, and therefore it achieves a heat of between 900 and 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit, yeah, and that will do that will do that job. You run through one cycle and it's kosher for Pesach. It's possible that the door doesn't reach that heat. They're designed that way, so you should cover the door, even if you have a self-cleaning oven. With a regular oven, it only reaches around 550 degrees Fahrenheit, so you're not going to get to that level of heat. So what do you do about a regular oven if you have no other option? You don't have a Pesach oven. So what you should do is you should clean the oven. You should wait to clean it very, very well. That means like really well, with the oven clean, every space, every possible crack, everyone all over the place. Wait 24 hours and then turn it up to highest heat for an hour. And that achieves at least the basic level of what we call libun kal. And then you have two options. Either you bake all the food you need for Pesach in it before Pesach comes in, right? And that you can do even if the food is uncovered or whatever. But if you want to use that oven on Pesach itself, yeah, then you should either use the oven, either use it with either make sure that the oven itself is covered, some sort of insert, of course one that's safe, right, inside the oven and the food's in the insert, or only cook food on Pesach in it which is covered. The food should be covered on Pesach, okay? And that's because there are problems with, as I said, you can't get to that level of koshering that you need really with an oven. But if you plan beforehand, you can work it out which foods need to be uncovered and which foods need to bake before Pesach. A microwave should not be kashered. It is difficult to kasher microwave, and microwaves for Pesach are very expensive. So if you can get yourself a Pesach microwave, that's what I think you should do. I do not think you should kasher dishwashers. I don't think you should start with kashering dishwashers. There's all sorts of problems with them and doing them. If there is an extreme situation where you are absolutely desperate, there's no other way, you have to kasher, please contact me privately to see whether there's an option. But as a matter of principle, I don't think you should be, we should not be kashering dishwashers. It's too complicated. I'm being asked, do we need to double wrap in the oven, or one cover of foil over the top is sufficient? I think if you're kashering your oven in this way, a regular oven, then I think as long as the food is completely covered over Pesach, then it's okay. Again, you want to use a second cover in order that you're sure it's completely sealed, the food, right? Completely covered, right? But as long as the food is covered, then you're okay. Or if the oven has been kashered in this way, then you can cook in it on Pesach with the food where the food is being covered, where the food is covered. Okay, so the other thing, of course, is stoves and the like. When it comes to the stove, a stovetop, if you're using an old-fashioned gas stove, what you can, to kasher that, don't use it for chometz for 24 hours. Put a blech on top of the grates, metal sheet on top of the grates, and turn it on, or use heavy-duty aluminum foil. Be very, very careful, because it can be very dangerous in terms of getting burnt, God forbid. But that will spread the flame over it and kasher it as well, and kasher it in that way. Another option is to take. How long does the blech need to be on it? I think like an hour. I think around an hour. I think. Let me just check. Yeah, make sure you thoroughly clean it first, etc., with the use of very strong cleaning spray. No, it says no, maximum quarter of an hour. You also want to avoid, you don't want the pot to come in direct contact with the grates, okay? So you're going to use something like thick silver foil, chicken wire between your Pesach pots and the grates, okay? If you're going to use your the place where the chometz pots rest during the year, the pan rests. An electric stove. What you want to do, a standard electric stove. We'll come on to ceramic in a minute. You want to clean the hob, clean the hob very well, of course. Turn the hob onto full power for 45 minutes. You don't need to wait 24 hours. That is in terms of an electric. That's in terms of an electric stove. Ceramic stove, where the electric is embedded in the ceramic gloss top, it's a problem to kasher. Ideally, you shouldn't. Ideally, you shouldn't kasher ceramic stove because of these complications. If you really need to, because you don't have any other option, then you can put the burners on for an hour. That means the burners of the ceramic, the full ceramic burners, whatever it is, put them on for an hour, and then that will kasher them. The problem is you've got the spaces in between, which are much harder to kasher, and for that you have two two options, if possible. What you can buy, that's called mica, you can buy it from Shutlers. You cut it out, and that goes around the burners. There are authorities that allow you, I believe, just to boiling water over the whole thing, and bubbling water. Of course, when we talk about kashering, I don't just mean boiling, I mean bubbling. I think that's clear, right? Bubbling water, right? It's actually, that's the heat you need for kashering. By the way, if you want to kasher plates and, not plates, because you can't kasher plates because that's ceramic. You want to kasher anything else, metal things or whatever it is, this year I would definitely advise you going to the public kashering that takes place. It's simple. They know what they're doing. It's much, it's just an easy way of doing it. When it comes to an induction stove, a few people ask me about induction stoves. Induction is a problem because the problem with the induction stoves is the way they work is basically they get they don't really heat, except the pot goes on top and it's some magnetic magic, right? That makes that's how the heat is generated. So again, you have the problem with how to actually kasher these things. How to kasher these things. The way to do it, so ideally don't use them on Pesach, induction stoves. And by the way, I should point out that you can't anyway use them on Yom Tov, right? An induction stove, because an induction stove, the way it works is it goes on when you put the pot on, so you can't use them on Yom Tov anyway. However, if you're in a situation where you really do need to use your induction stove, then you have two options. There are authorities that allow you simply to do the same thing, clean, wait 24 hours, and then pour boiling water, bubbling water over the whole thing. And that there are those who say that and if you need to, you can rely on that will kasher it. There is another option which I saw on the Federation have on their FedTech website. They've done wonderful research into these sort of things, and you can buy something called, I actually wrote down what it's called. Maybe someone knows what it's called. It's something you can buy. You can buy on Amazon. It's called a heat diffuser induction plate. It's about 25 quid. And what it does is it basically goes on the induction hob, and then you're laughing because then you're going to cover the hob in that way, and your Pesach pot's going to go on top of that. And that's your solution for using the induction hob on Pesach. Johnny, you're raising your hand?
Can I just ask, if one took to the kashering place the hob grates, would one still need to put foil or chicken wire between?
I think so. I think with the stove grates, I think the place that you're putting your pot directly on, because of the possibility of spillages and going on with the stove, I think you should use chicken wire or something in between. Because as far as I understand, it's completely, I don't think, as long as it's safe, make sure it's safe to do it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know your particular setup, right? Check that out first. But using chicken wire between the pot and the grate itself seems sensible. Okay, I think that's what one should do. I'm being asked here also about, I can let you know when the public kashering, because I saw it advertised today. I can't. I don't know if someone else knows when it is, but it is happening. It is happening. Sunday, 21st of March. There you go. From 2 to 6 p.m. at Tugi Shul, Beis Medrash Nishmas Yisrael by Tuganov Shul. That is where you will find the Federation at least doing it then. I'm sure there are others as well, but that's when they're doing it, 2 to 6 p.m. on Sunday, 21st of March. Shabbos, kettles, Shabbos, and urn. I think that you should have a new one for Pesach. You should get another one for Pesach, and that's because people put chometz, heat things up on, on that top of the urn during the year round and everything else. So, and they are very difficult to kasher because of the plastic in them and everything else. So I think you should get a Pesach dig urn. Yeah. Joanna, you got a question?
Just going back to when you were saying when you were kashering, you use a Pesach kettle. So let's say you put it, can you only put that down on a Pesachtic place, or let's say there was a place in the kitchen that was still chametz and you weren't thinking and you put it down. Just putting it down on a cold Pesach top does not make that kettle chametz, does it?
No, but you want to cover the sideboard with something so you don't put it down on anything chametz. Yeah, anything that you're going to be used, anything that's a Pesach keli, whether it's a kettle, whatever it is, right? The minhag is always to cover anything that you put anything Pesach down on. Right?
But I kasher my work side, so I'm not gonna kasher my work surfaces. I need to pour boiling water. So I've got this chicken and egg. I mean, obviously I can put plastic or silver foil under the kettle, so that.
Yeah, just put something underneath the kettle. If you haven't yet kashered your sideboards, then just put something underneath the kettle first. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, yeah, it is. Yeah, you can definitely. I think that's what you should. Yeah, use. It's easier to use. There are ways technically of using a chametz kettle. I'm just seeing it now. I finally found it. A year-round kettle. If it's not used with chametz, it's much more straightforward to use the Pesach kettle to kasher. I think in that way, you get that out first. Find that in the box first. If you keep your stuff in boxes. Right, my Pesach stuff is still in someone's garage in Hadley Wood, so I have to go. I have to go whenever we have to go and get that. Anyway, that's besides the point. So where are we up to? We are up to we're winding things up now. I think we've done induction hobs. Anything else about kashering? Anyone want to ask anything else about kashering? Yeah, no, we're okay. Okay, fine. So there's the. What else was I asked to coach? Is there egg matzahs? We talked about egg matzahs. We talked about, yeah. Mechiras chometz, just another point about mechiras chometz. I have assumed for this year, for a few reasons, that no one is abroad, okay, in terms of mechiras chometz. There's a few reasons why I've assumed that. Firstly, because no one's really traveling. And secondly, because we're doing the Mechira on the 13th this year for everyone. So the normal issues you have about time zone differences with Israel and everything else, yeah, are not really relevant. Yeah, because, in terms of that, right? Because it's the 13th. So we can do the, right? So we don't have that problem that we normally have. However, if there is anyone who needs a sale on the 12th, right, beforehand, yeah, before even the time of doing the searching for chometz, because you're going to be away the whole of Pesach for whatever reason, then just please do be in touch with me privately, because we have to make different arrangements. Yes, I was asked on a totally different topic. Oh, there was another question I saw on the side here. Yeah, hot water on Chol HaMoed is not a problem. I saw that question was being asked. You can use hot water on Chol HaMoed from the hot tap. Okay, I was asked a question about haircuts this year. This is a COVID question. According to the government, stick to their timeline. Okay, so we're going to have a situation, and that is that the hairdressers, as far as I understand, are going to open on the 12th of April. 12th of April is the first day Rosh Chodesh Iyar, right? First day Rosh Chodesh Iyar, so it's the last day of Nisan. 2 days Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Now, for those who keep the first half of the Omer, they are faced with the possibility of having to wait even longer to get a haircut. Are you with me? Because you can't have any haircuts now until they finally open. So what is the solution? So the solution is, in Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah says that there are different minhagim, as you know, when it comes to the Omer. For this year, a person wants to keep the second half instead of the first half in order to get a haircut on the 12th or 13th of April, then that's fine. Okay, you don't need to do Hataras Nadarim, you don't need to do annulment of vows, you can just do that this year, you can switch just for this year. What you do then is you start keeping the Omer from the 2nd of Iyar, base Iyar, and that go away till Erev Shavuos. Because even within that second half, quote unquote, of the Omer, there are two customs. Some start from the beginning of Rosh Chodesh and stop before the 3 days before, right? You get to the 3 days before Shavuos. You want to get in your 2 days of hair cutting. You're still going to have 2 days, but at least you're going to get your 2 days of hair cutting in. Then what you can do is you can start keeping the Omer from the 2nd of Iyar up till Erev Shavuos. So that is a nice, I think a reasonable solution, at least for those who are concerned about that. A couple of other questions that I'm being asked here. Fish from Tesco. Fish from Pesach during Pesach. So the answer is you should preferably buy fish on Pesach from a kosher Pesach fishmonger because of the concerns. There are concerns involved. It is, however, if that's difficult or for whatever reason, or you're worried about the expense, whatever there are, if you can't do that, then you can buy frozen fish from Tesco, or indeed, I'm not advertising for Tesco, another supermarket, whatever. As long as it's got, as with the rest of the year, as long as you can see the scales, and you can see the scales on it, just make sure you rinse it off before using it. Frozen is better. I would buy frozen rather than fresh. But as I say, preferably from a kosher Pesach fishmonger.
Why is frozen better?
That's what the Beis Din say, and I am happy to rely on their food technologists and the research that they've done. So that's what they say. They say that's in order of preference. They say frozen is better than fresh. Maybe there's more concern with fresh, that it could have got in contact with something or whatever, right?
And when you wash it, can you just wash it in your regular Pesach sink, or is there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're going to wash it. It's anyway going to be cold and whatever. Yes, I think that's okay. When it comes to the deliveries are probably, if you're talking about delivery with chometz, I'm also being asked about deliveries in chometz. If you're talking about deliveries that have chometz in, again, if there are exceptional circumstances, then let me know what you want to do. But generally speaking, don't order chometz right on Pesach for it to come after Pesach. You have a problem potentially with owning the chometz if you pay for it on Chol Hamoed, it's going to come afterwards, and that sort of stuff. So.
But if I did, let's say I did an order now.
Yeah.
For after Pesach, is that a problem or not? So I'm not doing the order on Pesach. I'm doing it before Pesach, but after Pesach.
Yeah, this has been discussed many times. It depends, I think, how it works, because it depends when the ownership.
You only pay for it once.
I think there are those who allow. Let's try this. There are those who allow it as long as you order the food before, as long as you order for Pesach. Once you start, to order something before Pesach and then to come after Pesach, then that may be okay, but you do need to check the terms and conditions of the particular establishment you're buying from. When is it actually owned by you? Look at the terms and conditions. You don't want to run into problems of ownership on Pesach, right? Chometz, yeah. So I would avoid it unless you need to. That's what I would say. You often, for example, you can put something in the bag. You can put something in the bag online, and then you can, what I mean, fill in your chometz stuff on motzi. If you get a slot for the next morning, you fill in your stuff after Pesach, after Yom Tov has gone out, right? Okay, that would be the simpler and easier thing to do. There were one or two other questions that I was asking, and honestly, we really have almost finished. At least all the questions that I have, anyway. You can sell your chometz if you own chometz in Israel. Yeah, you can sell it through an English intermediary. That's not a problem. It's not a problem as long as the sale takes place before the time is not allowed in either place. In either place. That's not relevant this year because we're all on the 13th. Okay, so that particular point is not relevant this year. If you rent out your house, I was also asked about this. You rent out your house, you own chometz in the house. Right, wherever that house is, it doesn't matter if the tenant's responsible for his chometz in that house, the tenant will have to clean the house as well. The responsibility for bedikas chometz is on the tenant. But if you own chometz in that house, obviously you've got to sell that chometz because it's yours, right? So that's got to be included in your sale. The minhag is to line the fridge and shelves. Reading other questions, I've been asked to line the fridge and shelves for food. So technically, it's okay just to wipe and to clean down. But the custom is that we cover all surfaces where we put Pesach food onto or Pesach kelim. So yes, you should line the fridge and shelves, etc. When it comes to, I'm also being asked about tinned vegetables. Again, you need to check all these things. Best to use the Is It Kosher for Pesach app, right? The one that the KLB produces, fantastic. It goes through everything. Check what they say about these things. There is an in extremis list. Yeah, this is another COVID issue. You would have seen that last year. The Beis Din have made it very clear that it really this year that is really only relevant for those people who, for whatever reason, cannot get out, can't get food, relying on people, for example, delivering to them and that sort of thing. That may well apply to some people, but for most people this year, thankfully, there is the access. We're not worried about shortages. thank God, we have the ability to do what we normally do, and therefore we should preserve all our normal minhag in terms of everything that we would normally buy. And by the way, if there's nothing that's clear on the KLBD, is it kosher for Pesach app, you can call them, they're excellent, give them a call, ask them what they say about, these things do change often year to year, establishment to establishment. I've gone on far too long. I apologize about that, but hopefully it's been helpful and useful. It's also going to be recorded and be up on YouTube. Anyone have any final questions or something that you think isn't clear, that I haven't clarified enough, or anyone else want to raise anything? Yeah, we got another question here. Yeah, you can include in the sale half open whiskey bottles. It's not a problem. They can be sold. Yes, they can be sold. We're just going to add it up when you do the sale. You don't overestimate how much it's worth. Yeah, better to underestimate rather than overestimate. Yeah, I realize there isn't. We haven't really. There are other questions people might have to do with the standard questions that people have about the sale. And that is what I will say is, you do keep in mind that if there are any in extremist situations, any particular circumstances people have, intolerance to matzah, can only have a minimal amount, whatever it is. You want to know what the smallest amount, just be in touch with me, please. That's what I'm here for. Happy to help wherever and however I can. For normal, healthy people, right, who don't have an issue, don't have what they should be aiming to have when it comes to what they should have for certainly the motzi matzah and also probably afikomen. Can you see my hand, right, with the fingers a bit spaced apart? You see that? Okay. Imagine there's a square drawn like that, around the thumb, up like that, and down like that. Okay, that's how much matzah you should be having for the Minhat Torah motzi matzah. Okay, it's a square. It's about, I think, about 2/3 of a machine matzah, thereabouts. Okay, that's what you should have. Again, that's that's for motzi matzah and preferably for afikomen as well. But korach, you can have half of that. And again, for someone who is unwell, can have half of that even for motzi matzah, which is about the size of I'll tell you, the smaller size for those who are who are ill, unwell, can't have less, is that much. Ignore the thumb. Okay, ignore the thumb and just like this. Okay, that's the smaller size. You with me? Make that clear? It's just easier. They give out these charts. Have you seen those charts? It's so complicated. The people sit there with charts. Very simple. Yeah, look at your hand. That's how much matzah you should have. Square it off, including the thumb. Your hands are spaced apart just a little bit. That's how much you should have. And for korach, you're going to have just that much. And for someone who is unwell, if necessary, they can't manage more. They can manage just with that. Okay, I hope that's good. As I said, we haven't completed everything, but we've hopefully gone through quite a bit. And just be in touch and have a kosher and Pesach next week, next Wednesday evening. Join me for some insights into the Haggadah. We'll be able to hopefully share some things that are practical and usable at your own Siddharim. And for now, I wish you all a very, very good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kosher Pesach to everyone. Well, it will be now.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. Thank you for joining.
Thanks very much, Rabbi Birnbaum.
Great pleasure. Thank you for joining.